on tonight's UAP News Show.
Lue Elizondo is making the rounds after the release of Imminent.
The Kevin Day Tic-Tac name drop bomb.
The head of India's space program says he has no doubt that Earth is visited by ETs.
Republicans request an update on Havana syndrome treatment.
Awesome articles from Popular Mechanics magazine.
And current head of AARO Tim Phillips reply to Lue Elizondo. Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we are back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO News Show. We are stoked to get started, so without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, Cosmic Enthusiasts. It's Justin here, and let's dive right in. Up first, Lue Elizondo is making the rounds after the release of Imminent. As you all know, Lue Elizondo's book, Imminent, The Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, has dropped, and, like, literally everyone is talking about it. This past week, Lue has been making the rounds, appearing on different shows with all kinds of different people, and we are here to share some of that with you. First up, we have a clip from Confessions of a UFO Hunter, where Ross Cohart interviews Lue Elizondo.
Did you, in any of your UAP investigations, come across evidence of alleged abductions of humans by non-human beings?
We came across information that suggested that people were having things put inside their body that they did not give approval to.
So people have been taken away from their homes in the middle of the night and had things planted in them.
Something that was put inside their body, something invasive, right? Something that was not put there by their permission to do something.
You've seen one of those implants, haven't you?
I have been privy to some very interesting things.
This photo, he says, shows one of those interesting things. It's allegedly a biological sample removed from a US service member and submitted for analysis. This is possibly an alien implant.
Well, if you look, there's actually a piece of the chip sticking out and what appears to be these fibers that were moving on their own. And then it looks like this chip or whatever this is, this foreign object, is encapsulated by some sort of biological material.
Could that not be something biological, microbiological, or parasitic?
Well, it certainly, the outside looks like it's some sort of masking device. In essence, you have a foreign object, which it's a metallic object in there, and it seems to be encapsulated by some sort of biological material.
How do you know it's not just a bit of metal that somebody's knocked into on a building site?
Well, in this particular case, this was moving on its own. It was actually had its own metabolic activity, and it terrified one of the doctors who was looking at this under a microscope. Said they didn't want to see this again.
But are UAPs abducting people at random, or are they drawn to certain individuals? Elizondo says research has revealed an intriguing pattern among UAP experiences in a fascinating part of the brain.
This is a part of the brain known as the quadrante putamen, and it is a very specific part of the brain. It's responsible for all sorts of stuff, and some have even speculated precognition
But certainly intuition.
Intuition for sure.
Elizondo says the caudate putamen is larger in people with alleged psychic powers, what the government has called remote viewing. What about people who've had UAP experiences?
Very interesting. The same thing. And by the way, that's not me telling you. These are medical doctors and scientists.
Stanford immunologist Dr. Gary Nolan has been researching this topic, and while his conclusions are not definitive, there are two working theories. One, that people with naturally large caudate putamen might attract UAPs like an antenna. Another, that UAP encounters with normal people cause that same part of the brain to get bigger.
And there's a lot of information to substantiate that this is real morphology occurring in the human brain.
Elizondo argues that people with enhanced caudate putamen might have a talent both for remote viewing and communicating with UAPs. And that's important because it's an established fact that the Pentagon has had an interest in remote viewing for military purposes.
In the vernacular, they used to call it psychic espionage. There was a program in the U.S. government, it's called Stargate. They were taking young soldiers and civilians, and they were training them to conduct espionage behind enemy lines. And the term was called remote viewing. A lot of people that were in the remote viewing program had MRIs done of their brains, and a vast majority have that specific morphology. Do I think it's extraordinary? No, it may be a vestigial capability that humans had for a long time.
But does it work?
Oh, it absolutely works. It absolutely works.
A vestigial capability that humans had. And honestly, that reminds me of when we featured Ryan from Post Disclosure World, aka UFO Jesus, when he was talking about how it's like crazy for somebody to say that remote viewing and psychic abilities are of the devil when it's just a human thing that we can do that was like demonized along the way somewhere.
Right. I mean, it's just like, you have this muscle that you've never exercised before. You don't know how to use it. You don't know how to exercise that muscle, and until you start trying to do, something like that, you will never understand,
Right.
And, it's pretty amazing that they say that pretty much everybody has this ability, and I really think that everybody, can do this. You just have to practice, and you have to start using that muscle that you got to train yourself how to use that muscle, right?
And we've spoken to all kinds of people on my channel that have said similar things. Everybody from NDE experiencers have mentioned that, shamans have mentioned that, psychic mediums have mentioned that. Everybody's like, look, this is just a thing we can do. It's either you practice and the muscle gets stronger and you're able to do it, or you never acknowledge it and it kind of just lays dormant until you do.
Right.
And then, go ahead.
Oh, and everybody has had some type of experience that, you think somebody's going to call you and then all of a sudden they do, right? Or like you feel like there's about to be a knock at the door, and then somebody knocks on the door.
That's premonition.
You're right. Everybody, I feel like most people have had some type of, premonition experience.
Yeah.
Or
that they just like probably chalked up to like.
To nothing, you know? I mean, not even premonition, but just, weird coincidences, that you can't readily explain. And I feel like, you might be able to relate to that and then, realize that, there might actually be something more that we don't quite fully understand yet. And
somebody else that responded to that video, particularly that portion of the video, is renowned theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, who joins host Brian Enton to discuss News Nation's special report.
One of the country's most distinguished voices in the field of theoretical physics and popular science, Dr. Michio Kaku. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I've been a fan for a long time, so it's an honor. Professor Kaku's most recent book, it's The God Equation, The Quest for a Theory of Everything. So first of all, Dr. Kaku, tell us, you watched the special. What do you make of these claims? Do you find them believable?
Well, first, I think Elizondo has done a public service by releasing this mountain of classified data, which gives us hard numbers for the first time. We now know for the first time that these objects can drop 80,000 feet within a matter of a few seconds. Our aircraft can't do that. These things can zigzag, creating G-forces that would crush anything metallic. In other words, they're probably robots of some sort inside these objects. They can even go underwater. However, there are limits to what he said. For example, the dead bodies. We have yet to see alien DNA. That would clinch it right off the bat. Right off the bat, that would clinch the whole debate. Alien technology, alien transistors, we don't have that. People talk about that, but we have yet to see evidence of alien technology that we scientists can then dissect in the laboratory. That's a weakness of his story.
How would we even know, though, if it's alien DNA? Would we have a way of figuring it out? Because in the special, he mentions that the biologics, as they call them, got passed around from government agency to government agency.
Yes, well, we know quite a bit about how computations are done mechanically through abacuses and different kinds of devices, including transistors, which require electricity. So if we get alien technology, they would probably be atomic. They would probably have a whole new way of dealing with computation. So immediately we would know that it's extraterrestrial. But no one has given us alien DNA, alien transistors, alien technology that would end the debate right then and there.
Right. Yeah, we want to see it with our own eyes. That's what I think is so interesting. The video released by the Pentagon, which you were alluding to, the Tic-Tac, that's stuff that we can actually see. Right. That we can't explain, that we know exists. In terms of the biologics, we still haven't seen it, but it's interesting in the special, they showed a photo of what they say is believed to be something that was inside a human body that may have been put there. This is like where I think I get a little skeptical. What do you make of that? I mean, is this believable to you?
The smoking gun would be DNA evidence. No one has done a DNA sequence of that, so who knows? It could be organic, it could be a mutation of the person's own body, but we can decide by analyzing the DNA of that. So I wonder, how come it hasn't been done already? It should have been done years ago, and so there's no more guesswork because we have the technology to decide what is extraterrestrial and what is not.
Do you think it's possible that it has been done, but just in secret? That, you know, there are these secret government programs, that they've got these things, they're testing them, and they've just managed to keep it out of the public eye?
It's always possible that the government is hiding something. I mean, how do you disprove a negative like that? You can't. However, take a look at this object. This object was there for public viewing. Anyone could have taken a little piece of that and then analyzed the DNA to decide where it came from. So that's what I'm saying. We have to use high-tech technology in order to understand exactly what alien technology is about.
All right, so I feel like he was going right up to the line, right, but didn't cross that line of coming out and saying that bodies possibly could have been recovered. One of his explanations was the craft zigzagging and creating immense G-forces, which I think they do. But he said only robots or something like a robot could withstand those G-forces. I disagree.
I know where you're going with this.
If you take what Bob Lazar has claimed of how these craft move, what Lue Elizondo has now come out and said about the bubbles, right? These gravitational bubbles. If these craft really are moving around, you know, by a gravitational bubble, their time is moving much faster than ours is, right? Because they're in an intense gravitational field that is canceling out Earth's gravitational field. And to them, you know, they might just be moving, you know, at, you know, like what we would consider just a normal regular speed, you know, and moving and then doing a turn, right? To them, it's not creating, you know,
G-force?
Yeah, okay. To them, the G-forces are not that extreme, right? But from the outside looking in, it looks like it would be extreme. You know, if you take a fighter jet or a helicopter, you know, and you take a video of it moving around and you speed that video up, and then you try to do the computations of how many G-forces they just experienced with the video sped up. That's the same thing that we're doing with these UAP, you know, that are moving, that appear to us to be moving really fast, but in their own gravitational bubble, they're not moving that fast.
So they're experiencing a whole different dimension or reality versus from what we're perceiving. So they're not experiencing G-forces because they're not moving. I get it. So, and you're actually like having a premonitional conversation.
Okay.
So can you hold the rest of that thought real fast?
Well, sure, but it's okay. But so the reason that I started saying this is because I feel like Dr. Michio Kaku is going right up to that line and saying that Lue's story falls short when it comes to alien bodies being recovered because there's no DNA evidence yet. You know, well, just like he said, you know, he doesn't know if the government has done DNA sequencing tests yet. You know, we don't know that because that's classified. You know, is that so? That, you know, yes, I would love to have some sort of DNA evidence. That would be the smoking gun. That would shut the book. You know, I mean, that would be the holy grail, right? And maybe that's coming in a few years. I don't know.
I feel like what he said was so simple yet so complicated at the same time, because he's like, you know, we need to take DNA of like this implant that we're talking about, for example, He's like, we need DNA, which sure, we do. And that would be great for us to all see. However, I do think there is DNA of it somewhere, and someone has already done tests on it and they already know what it is. And that's why the mainstream scientists haven't gotten their hands on it yet, because the government has it classified and they don't want regular scientists dealing with it. It's a very enclosed population of people that are allowed to deal with these samples and materials and objects and biologics and entities and whatever. And then on top of that, a lot of the people that are working on these things don't even know the origins of them to begin with. They're just getting a little cell sample and they're told, here, figure this out. Or they're just like, given a piece of metal and they're like, oh, tell us about how this thing works or whatever. So they don't even know what they're getting. Plus, if you have like office A and office B right next to each other, or shit, let's make it even smaller than that. You have this side of the desk and that side of the desk. They could both be working on the same project at the same time, but because they're not allowed to converse and talk to each other about it, they don't know that. So they're not allowed to like know what the other guy's working on, and they're not allowed to collaborate about what they're learning about what they're working on. They're just supposed to like stay solo mission and blinders on, stay in your cubicle, stay in your box, stay in your lane, don't say shit to anybody and whatever. I feel like we're also digressing really hard, but go ahead.
Well, to your point there, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why we need to get this whole UAP issue out into the mainstream. Out from all these compartmentalized factions of study within a corporation. Because you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, the only way for us to actually make any sort of real meaningful momentum or progress on figuring out what this is collaboration, between the smartest people in the world, and, not one single person is probably going to be able to figure this thing out by themselves. That's just not the case. We need collaboration between the smartest people. And the only way that that's actually going to happen is if we cut through the red tape, and get this into the mainstream.
Which is what like people like Gary Nolan are fighting for with the Soul Foundation, getting the brightest minds of the entire world together in the same room to discuss the same kind of stuff with open source information and data. It's available to anybody and everybody. So, it's no longer being done behind closed doors with somebody standing in front and saying nothing to see here.
Exactly.
But I would like to get back onto the track of implants because I have something special to show you guys. So speaking of people with potential alien implants, let's take a look at a clip of an interview that we did over on my channel where we speak with Reverend Bill McDonald, and he shares with us his story about childhood abductions, UFO encounters during the Vietnam War, and a suspicious implant that the VA found in his arm with, unknown origin. Let's just throw that out there like that. So it was a very intriguing story. Let's take a look at a very short little clip, a very small piece of his story.
I was diagnosed about 3 years ago with osteoporosis, or whatever the worst kind of that is. So VA sent me to get a bone scan. 6 months later, did the same thing. So I go into the VA. I'd never had a CAT scan before, a CT. They're doing the arm. And the guy looks at it and he's getting excited. He says, there's a metallic object in there.
Tell me you got an implant.
So I looked at it, and the VA almost insisted. They wanted to cut it out. And I said, well, we don't know what it's doing.
Did they think it was like shrapnel maybe or something?
That was their first thing.
Okay.
But then blue that was shaped like a pill, like a capsule, right?
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It was shaped kind of like when you take a dog or a cat to the vet and they inject them with a vitamin. It was like that. And that was the thought when I looked at it. I thought, is this a GPS tracker? If I'm lost, I go to the pound and they go, oh, yeah.
They scan you. Oh, we found Reverend Bill.
Back, we got to call these people to come get you. So VA wanted to take it and not give it back to me. And I'm going, no, if we take it, it's mine. Well, we can't, it's it's a medical hazard and all this. I said, we don't know, you don't even know what it is.
Right.
All they knew was it was not metal.
So did they remove it or do you still have it?
No, I said no.
Good
so then
you.
6 months, I ended up at Kaiser, which is my HMO. And I'm in there for this. They CAT scan it, and I'm curious on getting a second opinion. So I get a CAT scanned. Go, oh yeah, there it is, and and she's taking a picture of the CAT scan on the screen, and she's keeping it. And they want to cut it out. Everyone wants to cut it out.
Right.
Well, what harm is it doing?
Had you ever noticed it before? Like before you saw the image of it, had you ever felt it or had sensations in that area or anything?
Scars, no cuts. No way it could have got in.
No scars. So had it? Wow. Okay. So many questions.
Right here, right on the inside, right next to the, what's that? Whatever that bone is, a fibula bone, whatever it is. There's a bone there.
Right.
So it's right up to that bone, and it's just sitting there. I don't know where it started, if it moved, if that was a permanent destination. And I'll get a scan in a couple of years, see if it's moved or anything.
Track it.
But it looks like it's just nested in there. And my thought was, call me crazy, but I'm going, if it ain't doing any harm, leave it alone. We don't know what.
Yeah. Removing it could set off something. Who knows, right?
Oh, right. So, but it's interesting to realize you might actually be tagged with something. And when you had an incident like I had when I was a child, where I'm watching these, they were trying to poke me with that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the memory. It was like, in my mind, it was a fishing pole. I go, what was it they were poking in? They were trying to poke.
So yeah, what he was talking about right there at the end was when he was a kid, he had an ET experience where he was taken aboard a craft, and he has memories of them with this long metal silver thing. His little 4-year-old brain equated it to a fishing pole because he didn't know what else to make of it. But he said they were trying to stick something in his arm, and then all these years later, they found a capsule-looking thing in his arm, and he had UFO encounters during Vietnam War and all kind of things. So his story is really interesting. There's actually 3 parts of it on my channel. So if you want to go hear the rest of it, check it out. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, he's a very interesting person. We enjoyed talking to him. And man, that was a long time ago, it feels like, Yeah,
it does feel like a long time ago.
That was before we had lighting.
That was before we had a green screen. That was before we had a lot of things.
Yes. Anyway.
But what's cool about his stories are that they're mostly all corroborated with other people. Like when he was a kid and he had the ET experience, so did his brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
When he was in the Vietnam War, saw the UFO, had that encounter, so did the rest of his dudes. So,
Yep. And he also talks about owls, and eyes.
And other military people who have had sightings and told him their stories, and his conversation with Reagan about UFOs. Yeah, you got just go to the.
That's right. Yeah, he talked to Ronald Reagan about it too. Yeah. Yep. So anyway, it's a very interesting interview. If you can look past the lighting and
forgive us
and
for our
we
early
were
days
still
of
very
production.
very new to recording. So please look past all that stuff, but listen to his story. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you go check it out.
Same. All right, so now getting back to what you were saying earlier about the bubbles and the UFOs not experiencing G-forces because they're literally like in their own little world. I have a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience where Joe and Lou discuss things like the 5 observables, UAP propulsion, physics, and space-time theories.
And I think Lou finally revealed, I think it might have been on Twitter, but there's a 6th observable.
Oh, that's right. What is it?
It is when somebody has some type of biological effect happen to them from an encounter.
Like Havana syndrome or like a radiation
or like
burn.
the white matter in somebody's brain.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, and we're going to be talking about Havana syndrome in like 2 stories from now, so hold that thought too.
Right. I'm pretty sure it was on X, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
But what we are seeing doesn't have any of that attributable compromise. It's not, these objects aren't slowing down. They're not changing their performance capabilities. They can do the same thing that we're seeing in the air and possibly in space and even underwater. So that is a fundamentally different type of technology than we are used to dealing with.
Is the assumption that they are doing something with space-time and gravity around them rather than using something like a jet propulsion engine that blasts fire out the back and it makes it go fast forward?
Right.
That they're doing something that alters the gravity around them.
Yeah. So
and that's why they can go through everything.
Yeah. So we had some of the best scientists on the team, folks like Dr. Hal Puthoff and some other folks that I'm not allowed to say their names, Dr. Eric Davis and some others, that were doing the calculations. Mathematical calculations on how this is possible, and the consensus was by the scientists, not me, because I'm not a physics expert, I'm not a astrophysicist, they were saying that, so let me back up here. Initially, the government for years was trying to identify the different exotic technologies that could explain the different performance characteristics. And it was during the ATIP years that the scientists had this consensus that if you had one type of technology, if you could do one thing, all these other observables now become possible. Kind of think of like a unifying theory. Mm-hmm. And so if you had the ability to create this bubble around you in a localized area that insulated you from the effects of Earth's gravity. Now, what is gravity? People think that, when I drop my glasses, that's gravity. That's not gravity. That's an effect of gravity. Gravity is the warping of space-time. And that's important because people you hear the term thrown around a lot, but they don't realize that space and time are actually connected. They are one and the same. They're opposite sides, if you will, of the same coin. And so you can't have one without the other. And so you have this ability to create a bubble around you that insulates you from the warping of space-time, let's say in this case Earth's gravity or something like that. Then the way you experience time inside that bubble is perhaps fundamentally different than the way you might experience space-time outside that bubble, because you're not subject to the effects of gravity, which would explain potentially why things don't need wings and why they don't need propulsion systems like that, right? So it's a completely different way of looking at how we understand physics and how we, as humans, move about. Everything we do is fundamentally force equals mass times acceleration. Right? F equals ma, right? Mass times acceleration, and you get force. This may be something a little bit different. This is not using, again, conventional thrust, or if I, Newtonian, right? If I push this way, I have an equal and opposite reaction that way, right? That's how.
Are there any theories as to how it's accomplishing this?
There is. Actually, Dr. Hal Puthoff about 3 years ago gave a speech on this. A very interesting lecture about this technology. And if you ever have the chance, you really should have him on, because he's an incredible human being. He's also the one who helped start the government's remote viewing program and a bunch of other stuff for the government. He's been involved in a lot of our nation's probably most classified efforts. But he was working with us on ATIP as one of our scientists. And he gave a lecture about 3 years ago to some other scientists about the specifics on how this is possible. I am not a scientist, so I'm definitely not going to speak on behalf of Hal Puthoff, because I'm sure I will muck it up. But I do recall a time when he came into our skiff and gave us about a 3-hour lecture on this unifying theory. And at that moment, it was very much for us the epiphany that a lot of us had been searching for. He's like, look, at the end of the day, this is how it's possible. And that was kind of this, wow. So it's really not.
Can you give us a moron's
magic
view of how it's possible?
Yeah.
Explain it to someone like me.
Yeah, well, I'm in that category, Joe, so.
Good. We're speaking the same language.
Yes, sir. Yeah, single syllable grunts, right? So you have an object like this cup on your table, and you want it to be insulated from the effects of Earth's gravity. So you create this bubble artificially using a certain energetic source at a certain frequency, and it interacts with certain material, certain metamaterial. And I got to be careful exactly what I say, but certain skin of the craft, this aluminum via the cup here, and all of a sudden, whoop, you have this bubble around you where what you see on the outside is not necessarily what you see on the inside. In fact, may I do a little more drawing for you? Okay, forgive me, I'm not an artist, so I'm going to do this upside down for you, and then I'm going to kind of scoot this just a little here.
So what you've done is essentially you created a three-dimensional looking grid stacked. It looked like stacked boxes on top of each other.
Yeah, right. And so you have location A and location B. Mm-hmm. And let's say I go from Los Angeles to Baltimore.
Okay.
And it takes me 5 hours to fly at 500 miles an hour. That's a function of distance over time. And in essence, you can mark that linearly like this. So I fly, takes me 5 hours, there I am.
Okay.
If you had the ability to compress space-time, and not a lot, just a little bit, and you were able to allow these points to be a little closer together, now in essence, what took you, let's say, 5 hours and 500 miles an hour to do it, you can do it in 1 hour, and you can do it in much less time. But to the observer outside, because we're still in the same universe, we would see something like that. We would see this incredible hopscotching ability to, if you will, take a shortcut through space-time. And so what would appear to be instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, and other things, now becomes a reality. And so that is fundamentally what these scientists had discovered. And so it seems like science fiction, but when you understand the mathematics and some of the theorem that they've proposed, a lot of these other observables become possible.
That's so interesting to me. You know, I mean, when you really think about it, you know, when you really think about creating a gravitational bubble.
That's the part that my brain is stuck on. Like, how do you do that? What device are you using to create this frequency? What is it about the quote unquote skin of the craft that then reacts with that frequency?
So, yeah, metamaterial.
Right. Just the whole.
So I'm wondering if the frequency that is used to vibrate the metamaterial atoms, you know, to the point to where it creates a gravitational field, if you will. I wonder if that's the 1.6 gigahertz, you know, that's constantly being picked up all over the world, you know, like at places like Skinwalker Ranch, you know, whenever the phenomena is around.
That's a good.
That might be.
That's a good point.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, my whole thing, my brain is getting stuck on the whole idea of like creating this bubble, maintaining this bubble, and then like when they land or when they crash, does that mean that the bubble breaks? And then there's like, I'm like, how do you maintain the bubble? And at what point does the bubble dissipate? Like if they wanted to like land here and walk around, like, how,
well, I don't think it works like that. I think they can control the direction of like how much, let's say how much gravity is on the top side of the craft versus the bottom side of the craft, you know, and modulating those strengths of the field around it. I think that's could be one way that it's able to move around.
Honestly, you know, and there's parts of this conversation that are reminiscent to me of the Bob Lazar thing that we did like forever ago, where he was talking about those like big metal arms that are able to shift and rotate and point themselves in the direction.
The 3 gravity generators.
And then I think he also did that whole like paper demonstration where like if you have a flat piece of paper and you got to go from A to B, it takes you this long because you got to travel this amount of distance in this amount of time. But if you take that piece of paper and like fold it over itself and like accordion it to make it like a smaller piece of paper, that's how they explain how these UAP craft appear to be moving so fast from us.
I mean, that's the same. That's the same explanation, the same description that these theoretical physicists have given us, who theorize that wormholes.
I've been thinking wormholes this whole time. I swear.
Can be created or generated, you know, and I mean that's essentially how a wormhole works.
You literally took that word out of my head.
Right. That's how the that's literally how they say it works. You know, is they are compressing space or folding over space to bring these 2 points closer together, and then the craft are moving from this point to that point, and then they turn off the field, and boom, space snaps back to its original.
I'm just laughing because, like, here we are still burning fossil fuels, rolling around on wheels, you know, like driving in fucking traffic.
Right.
And these guys are creating wormholes and bending space-time and creating gravitational bubbles. You know,
I mean,
it's
dropping
like,
down from space to, you know, to sea level in 0.7 seconds.
Yeah,
I think that's what they said.
I really appreciate this book because of all these kind of like topics and conversations that we're all kind of having and all these things that we're pondering at the same time. It's like a collective resonance of, you know, all these things that are mentioned in the book. And I don't know.
Yeah.
So many things. But in short, Lue is definitely making the rounds. I mean, he's been talking a little bit of everybody. Since the book has come out, he's been on the Daily Mail, CBS, News Nation, Joe Rogan, The Hill, Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and other YouTubers and podcast places as well.
And we need to add Coast to Coast with George Knapp.
Coast to Coast with George Knapp too. All right. And it also seems like Lue is taking the time to hang out with friends, as we see here in this next tweet from James Fox. James Fox says, as usual, had a fantastic time with Lue Elizondo and Jesse in Austin, Texas. Love this place. Star emoji, pray emoji, heart emoji. So yay for Lue making the rounds.
You know,
what?
I don't want to speculate here, but I guess I'll go ahead and speculate. I think they watched James Fox's documentary, The Program. I think he was showing Jesse Michaels along probably with Danny Sheehan and Lue Elizondo.
And that's funny that you say that, because Jesse Michaels just released a video that was like 2+ hours of him talking to Danny Sheehan. Yeah. So it's like all these guys are in Texas.
Hal Putoff was there too. So
all these guys are in Texas getting together talking about UFO stuff. So I mean, yeah, it is. It's happening. I think it's cute that they're all getting together. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Texas, Austin seems to be a pretty cool place. I'm surprised they didn't extend an invitation to Patrick from Vetted, because
since he lives around there, right?
Yeah, he's around there somewhere. That would have been cool, but I don't know. Maybe we can manifest that in the future. Jesse, if you see this, invite Patrick.
Right, yep. So anyway. What do you guys think? Which one of Lue's appearances has been your favorite so far? Which part of the conversations being had are the most riveting and intriguing for you? And why? Let us know in the comment section below.
And up next, the Kevin Day Tic-Tac name drop bomb. Okay, guys, hold on to your butts because there's a storm about to blow through here. Okay. Recently on Facebook, Kevin Day, former senior chief operations specialist aboard the USS Princeton, during the famous Tic-Tac UFO incident, went off by name dropping all of the other people involved in that event, most of which were previously unknown and have never come forward. And he gave 0 Fs about doing it.
0.
This Facebook brush fire made its way to Twitter and went ablaze from there.
Oh, show. Seth writes, Kevin Day was a key figure in the famous Nimitz Tic-Tac UFO incident, which took place in November 2004. At the time, Day was the senior chief operations specialist on the USS Princeton, a guided missile cruiser that was part of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group. His primary responsibility was air defense and the detection of airborne threats. During the incident, Day was monitoring radar screens when he and his team detected multiple unidentified flying objects, which were later described as Tic-Tac shaped due to their white oblong appearance. These objects were observed performing maneuvers that defied known capabilities of conventional aircraft, including rapid changes in altitude, speed, and direction. Day's role was crucial because he was the first to notice these objects and reported them to his superiors, leading to the deployment of the FA-18 Super Hornet jets to intercept and visually identify the objects. The pilots, including Commander David Fravor, reported seeing the same Tic-Tac shaped objects and were stunned by their incredible speed and maneuverability. Kevin Day's observations and the data recorded during the incident have since become a significant part of discussions about UFOs and UAPs, especially after the U.S. government confirmed the authenticity of the video footage from the encounter. Day has since become a prominent advocate for further investigations into such phenomena. Shared below are multiple posts 14 hours ago where Kevin has had enough bearing the burden alone. Pay attention to what he says and who he names. These people need to be interviewed ASAP.
To learn more about this, let's watch a clip from Vetted where Patrick, Pavel, and Clint discuss this whole situation during a live stream.
UAP is real. No. UAP is findable. I've done it twice already. UAP is knowable. We can know what this is. And the reason why we need to wake up and grow up and sober up to this worldwide is because there's legitimate reports out there that in some cases encounters cause people to die. They got sick, they got cancer and stuff like that. And I totally believe it, But isn't the same thing true with today's technology? If I walk out in front of the freeway, I probably get struck and maimed or killed by a car, huh? But it doesn't mean the tech itself is bad. And that's the reason why we need to understand it better. Well, in addition to a whole list of other things, of course.
Mr. Kevin Day. So, boom. Right here, I'm going to read his entire statement, okay? This is just his whole Kevin Day statement that he wrote on Facebook. I was sworn to track and report all air contacts detected by spy radar, including identification, flight safety, and tactical recommendations. This was my duty, just as it was for everyone else. Yet, I'm of the very, very few who truly fulfilled that duty to our country. That is, did our jobs. In return, I lost my career, ended up destitute in the Calmipiosis, wilderness, and went through a painful divorce after a 30-year marriage with an ex-wife who even attempted to kill me with a sword.
Sheesh.
I lost the respect of my fellow warfighters and endured relentless ridicule. I faced it all, seemingly in vain. I now realize I was on a misguided quest, and I should have known that most were too cowardly to stand up. Only a few of the pilots and enlisted personnel involved showed true courage. And so now the entire world is going to know who they are. I've had quite enough of bearing this burden alone. F them. Let's see. Aboard the Princeton, the key players were the CO, Tactical Action Officer, Anti-Air Warfare Coordinator, Air Interceptor Controller, and the Electronic Warfare Coordinator. Names to follow. Kevin Day starts naming people, y'all, from the Nimitz encounter, right? Okay. Never named before, some of them, most of them. Clearly, the top one here you've heard of. So I'm going to read Captain David Fravor, and then y'all take turns. The key players in the 2004 Nimitz Tic-Tac encounter were: number 1, Captain David Fravor, commanding officer of VFA 41, the Black Aces Squadron. He was one of the fighter pilots who visually observed and engaged with the Tic-Tac UFO. Thank God some of the pilots showed real courage. Fravor is a hero, even though he is an egotistical asshole. Wow, I didn't realize I was in there. Forgot about that. Wow. Okay. Beyond belief. I am not the only one who that knows that. One that knows that. Jesus. Okay. That caught me off guard. Okay, Pavel, take it away.
Number 2, Lieutenant Commander Jim Slight, a pilot from BFA 41 who was also involved in the encounter. He was flying alongside Captain Fravor during the engagement.
Number 3 is Lieutenant Chad Underwood, a pilot from VFA 41 who recorded the encounter on video. His footage, known as the FLIR 1 video, captured the Tic-Tac object from his fighter jet.
Okay, Captain Carl E. Smith, commanding officer of the USS Princeton, CG-59, the Ticonderoga class cruiser that was part of the Nimitz carrier group.
Number 5 is Lieutenant Commander Jason J. Turner. I'd want a better nickname if I was Jason Turner. But Jason J. Turner, Tactical Actions Officer aboard the USS Princeton, responsible for overseeing the ship's combat operations and radar systems.
Number 6, Lieutenant Commander Brian C.R. B.C. Powers, Anti-Aircraft Warfare Coordinator aboard the USS Princeton, responsible for managing the ship's air defense operations.
And number 7, Captain Robert Bob T. Bobby McCullough, commander of, that's a cool name, commander of Carrier Strike Group 11, which included the USS Nimitz and its associated ships.
Excellent. It says these individuals played significant roles in the events and subsequent investigations related to the Tic-Tac UFO encounter. So that comes out of nowhere, y'all. Okay, out of nowhere yesterday, or within the last couple days, right? All leading up to, again, over the course of multiple, posts on Facebook. But then he told people, "Hey, I don't have an X account. Post it on X for me." That's where I saw it. But shout out to UFO Joe for piecing that all together.
All right. So, like Patrick said, out of nowhere, y'all, out of nowhere.
I think he's had it. I think Kevin Day has finally had it.
He's had it up to here. He's done. Stick a fork in that man. He is done. He's over it. He has 0 Fs left to give. He's already given them all away, and here we are in the aftermath of it. But there were also 3 other posts that he made that were kind of spicy that they did not include in the video, so I figured I want to read them to you guys.
Okay.
All right, so the first one says, it's been almost 20 years since the Tic-Tac incident, and yet most of those who were involved seem too focused on protecting their own interests to speak about what really happened. I've lost respect for every single one of you who lacks the courage to come forward, especially the officers. Even after Congress lifted the NDA you signed, you remained silent. A silence that loudly proclaims, I am a coward. And sadly, that's exactly what you are. This man is spicy. Your turn.
Yeah, all right. I guess I really will have to drop your names after all. Cowards. So it turns out that he actually did that. Okay. Without me speaking out early and often and hiding smoking gun evidence in the Library of Congress since 2009, the world would have never even heard about Tic-Tac. Fravor et al., the pilots, came forward because I did. I do not like Fravor personally. He reminds me of Trump, but the man does have courage, or is simply stupid like me.
And then number 3, it says, the pilots that have come forward are the true heroes. However, focusing on them is missing the forest and the trees. The people with the real story were aboard the ships dealing with these unknown aircrafts for over 10 days. The pilots were only involved for perhaps 10 minutes. I know, the Tom Cruise factor, I get it, but that alone demonstrates just how misguided and unserious this entire investigative effort by Congress has been. A concocted hoax designed to scratch an itch, hopefully putting the issue to rest. It failed. I won. Check and mate. Woo!
Yeah.
So this man apparently has something to say, and he had no problem saying it.
Right. So those 3 posts came out before he actually name dropped everybody. You know, the name drop post was the big, you know, the Big Bang post that he.
Right.
Yeah, but he has since deleted that from Facebook. You know.
Well, shit. You know what they say, guys. Once it's on the internet, it's on the internet.
Yeah.
And to get to the part of the conversation that I actually wanted to open up to you guys, let's read this Reddit comment from user Neandersaurus, who says, is he dropping names that don't want to be dropped? If so, that's going to affect the number of future whistleblowers negatively. If not, disregard this. Then user Chehosef adds, I think he's definitely going a bit off the rails of what Grush/Lue are doing. It's not going to be seen in the best light, but contextually, I can see how he's been suffering in life and it's led him to this point. This is a signal of a much deeper issue, suppressing the voices that are brave to come forward and the powers that be refusing to offer any sort of legitimate support services. If he has PTSD from these things, for instance, where would he go that he can be taken seriously? These folks he named could safely come forward or at least come alongside him. They could offer a simple apology for not being there for him in any way. It's tough because they likely were trying to preserve their careers and family, but this is an issue that persists regardless. Secrecy has damaged lives, and disclosure is the ball that needs to roll forward to stop these vicious cycles.
Yeah.
They bring up good points, because that's exactly what came to my mind. I'm like, the first thing that I thought of was, oh, snap. Did these people know that they just got exposed like that? Like, ugh.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if these people like agreed to be name dropped or knew that they were going to be name dropped, or if they know that they've been since they've been, but oof.
You know, or maybe some of those people have said behind closed doors that they would come out, you know, and say, yes, I was there, it really happened, and maybe they didn't do that, you know, and maybe that's what got Kevin
maybe that's why he's so heated, right?
So pissed off, you know. Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad you said that, because that brings up the point of the 2024 unknowns list, in which we talked about whistleblowers that Kevin Day mentioned coming forward. So like Justin just said, I'm thinking they had some kind of agreement, maybe, that they said they were going to come forward. They didn't do it in the timely fashion that was agreed upon. Yeah. Kevin Day said, yo, F you guys, I'm about to out you anyways, and then did. He did, y'all. He dropped the names, their titles, what they were doing, all of it. Touchy subject. I don't know whether to be happy because like we know more names and can possibly get more information, or if I should be sad and reclusive because I'm like, ooh, these people may not be prepared for what's about to come from this.
Yeah.
I'm feeling both equally at the same time.
Yeah, so me too. You know, I mean, I don't know how difficult it would have been for somebody to look up their names, you know, as, you know, okay, if you, I imagine there's a lot of people who know who the commanders of those ships were, you know, and who was in charge and what different roles some of those officers played during the Tic-Tac. So I don't know if that's something that could have been you know, it could have been FOIA-able, you know, or not. Yeah. But you know, it's pretty telling with Kevin just getting mad and coming out and telling who all those people are, you know. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we are unaware of.
I bet you there is.
Yeah. And to close out this story, here's another tweet from Seth that says, as many of you know, Kevin Day was instrumental in the famous Nimitz Tic-Tac incident back in 2004, where he first detected the unexplained objects on radar that would later be chased down by Navy pilots. His dedication to uncovering the truth about what happened that day has been unwavering. Today, Kevin is making some significant disclosures, including revealing key names involved in the Nimitz case that have remained under wraps until now. This is a crucial moment for the UFO community and for anyone passionate about getting to the bottom of what really happened in those skies. Kevin has been through a lot professionally and personally since that fateful day, and he needs our support now more than ever. Let's rally behind him and show that the UFO community stands strong with those who are brave enough to step forward and share the truth. Stay tuned for updates, and let's keep this conversation going. Your voices and your support matter.
And I just want to state clearly that we are supporters of Kevin Day.
Yeah.
I feel like this man has been through a lot, and he was truthful about what he's been through, and they treated him dirty afterwards. They totally ridiculed him and shamed him, and he's been through a heck of a lot of things since in his own personal life. And I mean, I just can't help but feel for the dude. So I also need to finish reading his book because I started it and haven't finished it yet. Sorry. But yeah, we totally stand by him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think there's some more things going on in his personal life than what people realize. I think he is a victim of the hitchhiker effect. I don't think he really publicly talks about it that often, you know, so that could also be having a pretty profound effect on him as well.
Okay, it's the first time I've heard that. All right.
Yeah. But regardless, yes, we support him, and I wish that those people that he name dropped would come out and say that yes, they were there, and you know, tell their side.
All I know is I'm going to be keeping my eyes and ears open for anything that those people do from this point forward, because it's on them to either, you know, make some kind of reply, make some kind of statement, support him in some kind of way. You know, the ball's kind of forcibly in their court, so we shall see.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of Kevin Day's name-dropping bomb? How do you think this is going to affect those that he mentioned? Will this have a positive or negative effect for future whistleblowers? Let us know in the comment section below.
Next on the docket, the head of India's space program says he has no doubt that Earth is visited by ETs. That's right. This week on a YouTube channel called Beer Biceps, the host of the Ranveer Show sits down to chat with Dr. Samananth, who is the chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, and a prominent figure in India's space program. With a strong background in aerospace engineering, he has played a key role in some of ISRO's most significant missions. Under his leadership, ISRO continues to push the boundaries of space research and explanation.
On Twitter, Lester Nair says, in an interview earlier this week, ISRO Chairman Dr. S. Samananth was asked, do you think our planet is visited by extraterrestrials? His response, absolutely, no doubt about it. Dr. Samananth's view offers a stark contrast to some of the perspectives from scientists in the West. It's crucial to acknowledge the diverse range of analysis across different cultures.
That gave me Carl Nell vibes. Zero doubt.
Right, zero doubt. You know, I mean, it's pretty cool, you know, that we have another highly educated person, you know, who is in a position of government, of his country's government, to know, you know, some potentially secret information, or, you know, he at least has access to data that is probably not readily available to the general public, you know?
Okay.
So, you know, he is in a position to probably know whether or not, you know, there really is something there, you know? So, I mean, that's just another person coming out and saying it. So.
Yep. Matthew Pines also agrees because he says, no big deal, just the head of India's NASA and leader of their overall space strategy and policy, stating publicly he has no doubt that Earth is visited by ET. I'm sure this is just a flight of fancy, nothing to see here. So let's check out a clip of that conversation now.
Okay.
But do you think our planet is visited by extraterrestrials?
Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Dang.
In my conscience says I don't have a proof.
You're the chairperson of ISRO, sir.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it comes from out of my earlier statement that there are aliens out in the universe. Aliens means living systems are there, cultures are there in other part of this universe. Then they would have definitely visited us if they are ahead in technology than us. Say 1,000 years, 10,000 years ahead. 10,000 years again is also minuscule time scale in the evolution of the universe. Just imagine a society which is 10,000 years ahead in technology compared to us. Where will they be? They will be frequently coming and going out of Earth without ever we knowing it.
It's the equivalent of us keeping lions in a zoo.
Yeah.
Right? We are the lions in the zoo for them.
Precisely.
Like
Yes.
our planet is the zoo.
Precisely. Yes.
Do you think that they would be benevolent or malevolent?
In either way, I will be happy never to be in touch with them. I will tell you why.
Really?
Yes, there is a reason. See, the biology is such that we are evolved out of a common biology that connects every living creature on the surface of Earth, whether it is plant, whether it is bacteria, whether it is fish or animal, and we are one and the same. You look at the genomics, you will understand this one and the same. There is no nature which is a protein which is different in nature on the surface of Earth. Everything evolved out of single possible life form. So we are all connected in some manner. But suppose something that evolved in another planet would have been synthesized in an entirely different manner. It may not have the similar genome structure, it may not have the similar protein structure, and it is utterly dangerous for all two life forms to come in contact with each other. The moment it contacts with each other, something has to overtake the other. This is the nature of the life. Okay, one will not allow the other one to survive. It has to be overtaken and destroyed. So unless they have a conscience about this, okay, they realize these two are different and we need to remain disconnected in terms of the body or the chemistry of it, and keep that apart and work together to find a solution for us to meet each other. Not at the level of the mind and the thought, but at the level of the body. If that doesn't happen, it will cause destruction either to them or to us.
Basically, they might be carrying some kind of diseases.
I'm not talking in terms of disease. It's in terms of the way in which we live. The form of the body, our blood, our way we for example, oxygen. We breathe oxygen. What is the guarantee? Oxygen is the gas that they need for them to live. We don't know. In fact, I have seen a science fiction novel in which they breathe methane in one planet. There is another, and they float on the air with a huge balloon on them. There was a NASA documentary on it. So such forms are possible. And they come in contact with us, it will be extremely dangerous for us. Or we in contact with them will be dangerous for them.
Okay. Do you believe in any of these theories like the lizard people or the Anunnaki, which say that probably they've taken human form and they are with us right now on this planet? Because if they are 10,000 years ahead of us, they would have accounted for even this biological problem.
Possible. They would have found out a solution. I don't have a solution today to make these two work together, but they would have already found out a solution.
We're just two lions talking to each other right now. Those are the human beings outside the cage.
True. Yeah, we can talk like that.
Do the scientists at ISRO talk about extraterrestrial life to each other?
There are many people in ISRO who are fascinated by all of this. So whenever we in free time, evenings, when we converse in free times, possibly we talk about all of this. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially with my younger colleagues, I spend a lot of time.
Okay.
So that's really interesting. Those are very interesting points that he was making. That I guess I haven't really pondered those thoughts before. About if speaking strictly scientifically, I guess I haven't really thought about having another life form that had developed, from a different planet, interacting with our biology. About the one taking over the other, or vice versa. I imagine there is probably ways around that. I mean, obviously, if they developed on another planet and breathe a different gas, right, like methane or something, I'm sure we have spacesuits that keep us alive in space. I mean, you could basically just take our astronaut suit, and put it on their planet, and we would be able to live in that astronaut suit. Why wouldn't they be able to do the same, but for us?
At this point, man, you never know.
Or
you never know.
I mean, who knows? What if they are, descendants of us, and they're coming back in time? That means they
would get along with
evolved,
us biologically
speaking.
They
evolved from Earth, so they're just coming back in time. So yeah, they could easily just live.
I just think it's interesting that somebody of that stature in India is just having a conversation on YouTube saying, yeah, I've got no doubt, no big deal. I don't know if I necessarily understand / agree with the whole us not being able to be around each other thing. Like, I have questions about all of that. But I want to just highlight the fact that, like, he's like our equivalent to NASA, saying, you know, I have no doubt. And he's talking about it on YouTube. And another thing that he said that I really wanted to point out is that he said that he's having these kinds of conversations with all of the younger people that work at ISRO. So this is just a casual conversation over in India where people are like, yeah, aliens exist. What do you think about it? You know, whereas over here it's still kind of stigmatized and you have to like have it in certain corners of the room in order to be able to get away with it, you know?
Well, yeah, I think that stigma is definitely coming down. You know, it's definitely reducing quite a bit. You know, I hear more and more people discussing UAPs, you know, just out in the open. And I mean, a perfect example is James Fox recently tweeted that he was on an airplane and the person he was sitting next to was watching Lue Elizondo's interview on Joe Rogan.
Oh, really?
Just on the airplane. Yeah. You know, so I feel like there's a lot more people that are waking up to this realization.
There has to be.
That UAP are real. They're here. You know, and you know we are trying to get data on it. So you know, I don't know. I'm just excited for finding out what UAP actually are.
Same. And shout out to Dr. Samananth and Beer Biceps for having that conversation and putting it on YouTube for the rest of us to watch and appreciate. If you would like to watch the rest of that video on your own, as always, the link to that video along with all the other sources featured in this show are in the video description box below in the order that they appear. So go ahead and take advantage of that. All right, coming up next. Republicans request an update on Havana syndrome treatment. 3 weeks ago, we did a story we called UAPs and Havana Syndrome, What Does Lue Elizondo Know?, in which we discussed the origins, symptoms, and implications of Havana Syndrome and verbally pondered on its connections to the UAP phenomena. Well, it seems that we aren't the only ones with Havana Syndrome on the brain. See what I did there? Okay. Because this week, the article called Republicans Ask for an Update on Havana Syndrome Treatment came out.
An excerpt from that article says, Republican leaders on the House Homeland Security Committee want to know what the Biden administration is doing about Havana syndrome, mysterious brain injuries that became public in 2016 after State Department officials in Cuba, capital city, were affected. Quote, we are deeply alarmed that these incidents continue to take place here and abroad, and that there has been little to no explanation from the administration as to who or what has caused these phenomena, end quote, wrote full Committee Chairman Mark E. Green and Counterterrorism Law Enforcement and Intelligence Subcommittee Chairman August Pfluger in a letter to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Tuesday. The brain injuries, referred to as anomalous health incidents, include symptoms of headaches, pain, nausea, disequilibrium, and hearing loss. Additional reports of similar symptoms later emerged from federal employees in other countries such as China, Russia, Vietnam, Colombia, and various parts of Europe.
So, Havana Syndrome seems to be a hot topic lately. It's not just us in the UFO community that are talking about it. I mean, these are Republicans trying to get information from Biden about it. So interesting. I just think that these kind of things are going to continue to be spoken about. And I really feel like there's connections to the UAP phenomenon. I don't know if it's like we talked about 3 weeks ago when we did that story. I don't know if it's due to close proximity to UAP craft and it's like some sort of like radiation effect, or if it's like a directed energy weapon where these things are intentionally being done to these people. I don't know. I have no idea. It could be a little bit of both. None of them, both. I don't know.
Well, also it goes to show that it's not just the United States. It's not an issue.
Oh no, this is happening everywhere.
Right. It's not just an American problem. It's a worldwide phenomena. That's occurring. It's not just happening here in the United States. It's happening everywhere.
Right. And let's not forget people like John Burroughs that we spoke about last week, who are getting full medical disability and who had a surgery to replace a heart valve due to Havana Syndrome and close encounters with a UAP in the Rendlesham Forest incident back in 1980, I think it was. I feel like I should know what year it was. I think it was 1980. But anyways, there's people that are literally like on disability for the rest of their lives and who have had life-saving surgery due to this kind of thing. So don't shoo and poo-poo Havana Syndrome. There's definitely connections to this and you guys should pay attention.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Havana Syndrome and its potential connections to the UAP phenomena? Make sure to join the UAP Society Discord server and share with the community what you think. An invite link can be found in the description box below. The next thing we'd like to share with you is awesome articles from Popular Mechanics magazine.
All right. So originally what caught my eye was this tweet from WOW that says, new Popular Mechanics magazine, September/October 2024. Skinwalker Ranch revealed, page 62 onwards. So that's what originally caught my eye, the Skinwalker Ranch revealed. I was like, ooh, okay, cool. Let me check this out. So on my hunt for that Skinwalker Ranch article, I clicked on the link to that magazine and started scrolling through the PDF pages. And in the process, I found other interesting article titles that I thought were worth mentioning to you guys. So these titles are the existence of Wigner crystals. Next, underwater UFOs. Then we have whether we live in a simulation, chasing an asteroid, and of course, Skinwalker Ranch revealed.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, I personally haven't read any of those. I'm not even going to front and pretend like I did. However, they look cool. They're interesting seeming, and I just want to share it with
What is a Wigner crystal?
Something about
I've never heard of that before.
Me neither. And when I read the title, I was like, whoa, now that's a little dangerous. It's something about electrons that are being held together by magnetism, and that's as much as I could say.
I'm going to have to go and read that article.
Yeah. And as always, if you'd like to read any of these articles on your own, the link to this magazine, along with all other sources featured in this show, can be found in the video description box below in the order that they appear. So make sure to check that out.
And last but not least, the current head of AARO, Tim Phillips, replied to Lue Elizondo. Recently, on LinkedIn, a New York Times story called A Memoir Offers an Insider's Perspective into the Pentagon's UFO Hunt was posted. In reply to that, Acting Director of AARO, Timothy Phillips, says, AARO has not discovered any advanced non-Earth technologies in over 1,600 UAP cases we have investigated. If someone has evidence refuting our analysis or leads we could investigate concerning any U.S. government programs relating to the recovery or exploitation of UAPs, please encourage them to contact us at aaro.mil. All right, so I feel like it's important to put emphasis on the fact that he said that they haven't discovered any non-Earth technologies, meaning that they could have data on UAP. You know, that I think they definitely have data on UAP. I just, you know, they are trying to, you know, say that they don't think that there's anything special about any of these incidents, right? That's the feeling that I get.
Okay.
You know, I feel like they are trying to muddy the waters, so to speak, you know. But if you pay attention to the exact wording, they use the term non-Earth technologies. So that could mean that they do have data on NHI, on a non-human intelligence, right? They could have data on craft, you know, underwater or, you know, in the skies that they can't explain, but it could be something from the future coming back, you know, something like that. That's what I get from that statement.
Okay. What I get from it is a bunch of BS. Like, it just seems like, oh, we haven't found anything, and if you guys know of anything, send it over and we'll look at it. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
like, nobody freaking believes you anymore.
Yeah,
anyway, AARO,
right.
Do you think anybody even, like, believes anything you say anymore? I mean, with the shit show you
Not
put
really.
on with Kirkpatrick Pants, I mean, the trust in AARO is just...
Also, I think one of the reasons why a lot of true legitimate whistleblowers are trying to stay away from AARO is because if you go talk to AARO, I'm sure you have to sign an NDA, and in that NDA, you won't be able to speak about the topic outside of.
So your story lives and dies within AARO.
Yeah,
if
I
they
mean,
do it that way. Yeah,
it's the same thing that tabloids do. You know, when you know, let's say there's somebody that does something and they have, you know, they have a lot of influence over people, and they don't want some weird story getting out about them. You know, they can pay a newspaper tabloid to go speak to that person, right? And they make them sign an NDA,
so
and then they bury the story.
Yeah,
they never publish it. You know, they just bury the story.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I've heard of that before.
It happens all the time. You know, anyway, that's, you know, I feel like AARO, you know, could potentially be doing that.
Could be.
All right, so like a lot of you guys out there, we don't really agree with AARO. We think it's been put in place as kind of like a Blue Book 2.0. You know, they're meant to muddy the waters, so to speak, you know. So it doesn't surprise me that they came out and made the statement, you know, that they haven't discovered any advanced non-Earth technologies, you know, even though they probably have.
I'm sure they have, or I don't know. It's I just have the vibe that most of us just don't trust AARO at all. Every time they say something, we just kind of eye roll and go, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
Like we hear the words that are coming out of your mouth, but like I don't get anything from it, kind of thing. So yeah, it is what it is. I just figured that I would throw Tim Phillips' little post out there because they're still playing that same old nothing to see here card.
Right.
So yeah, it is what it is. But in response to that, and to conclude this show with words of advice from Lue himself, I present you with the following clip.
UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
How did it feel for you, that moment? It was a very profound and proud moment for me. So you had 3 military personnel testifying on the reality of UAP. Now that's historic.
Whistleblower David Grush came on News Nation and made an earth-shattering claim.
It felt, for a moment, like the dam was breaking, that full disclosure was about to happen.
The American people deserve to know the truth on this.
But it didn't work out like that. First, AARO denied David Grush's claims. Then, like Lue, Grush became the subject of a vicious discrediting campaign, including his own medical history.
And they try to discredit him, just like they try to do me. Just like they try to do anybody else who comes out and steps out of rank.
What's more, AARO has publicly declared that it has found no evidence to support any claims of a government UAP retrieval program. As for the UAP captured on those famous videos, yes, they remain unidentified. But while the Pentagon says AARO will follow the data wherever it leads, it says it has not found any credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity. So do you think that people like Sean Kirkpatrick are operating according to a dictated agenda, that they're being told to try and suppress interest in the UAP?
What I can tell you is that what he was saying is not consistent with the truth. And when someone like that blatantly tells you something that is not true, you've got a serious credibility problem.
Dr. Kirkpatrick told News Nation, "At no time did I provide false information to Congress. In fact, my team provided actual evidence, something that all of the other claimants have failed to do." Why haven't you appeared before Congress yet? There must have been numerous opportunities.
Well, sure, but there's only been one public hearing so far. There's going to be more, and it's not up to me, but I can tell you I've been asked, and my response was absolutely, I will testify.
Lue's a patriot, isn't he?
Yes.
What's driving him?
He feels that humanity is owed this information. People should know if we are not alone, no government has the right to keep that hidden.
A growing public movement seems to agree, as interest in the UAP question continues to intensify, both online and at UAP conferences around the country. Plus, there's been a veritable avalanche of former military officers coming forward with similar claims, including Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet and Colonel Cal Nell.
Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new.
And military-grade UAP videos are now popping up regularly, like this one over Puerto Rico, this one along the Arizona border, and this one over an undisclosed conflict zone in the Middle East.
This is more than intriguing, more than provocative. It's potentially revolutionary and transformational.
What can people do? What should any citizen do? How can they help you?
Get involved. Talk to your members of Congress. Ask questions, whether it's around the dinner table or the water cooler. That's what I would encourage people to do. Start asking the hard questions.
So Lue Elizondo, crystal ball. Let's go 1-2 years in the future. Are we going to be as much in the dark then as we are now?
No. But you know, disclosure isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight. Disclosure isn't an event, it's a process.
So like Lue said, disclosure isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight. Disclosure isn't an event, it's a process. It's up to you to ask the questions, to have the dinner table and water cooler conversations, and to contact your local congressman to reiterate the utter importance of supporting this issue. The truth of this matter has the potential to impact not just you or your country, but all of humanity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes this week's UAP Society Weekly UAP and UFO News Show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And while you're here, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity. Much love, peace, and namaste.
The evolution of life on Earth seems to have been profoundly altered by collisions with such bodies.
Asteroids.